Hello, welcome back to the Disc Connected. I've been running through some of my favorite releases of 2022, but this time it's a little bit different. I'm going to go through some of my favorite discoveries of films that I've seen throughout the year of 2022 that are not from this year, and let's go over those now. All right, so for no rhyme or reason, I made two different lists. I made one list that was prior to the year 2000 and one list that was post the year 2000. I tried to limit myself to my six favorite. I don't know why, I just couldn't really cull it down to five. So I've got my six favorite pre 2000 films and six favorite post 2000 films that I saw for the first time this year that really impacted me that I wanted to share with you all. So the first one, I adored watching the Blue Underground 4K release of Daughters of Darkness. I absolutely loved every single moment of this film. It is beautiful and minimalist, yet over the top at certain things, and just not at all what I expected. And with the imagery that it's always been used with this film, I can see why they went with that. But overall, it was honestly much better than I really thought it was going to be. Loved every moment, and I'm really glad that we have a gorgeous looking 4K of it, because that release looks incredible. The next one is another one that got a wonderful release this year from Indicator, and Indicator put out 1977's The Brute. Now, I've been talking about this film for most of the year because this film is harrowing. It starts off with this home invasion feeling, and it leads into the fact that you discover it is a woman being battered by her husband. And this is like a domestic violence thriller, which sounds really sleazy in itself, but it's not quite that. It is a deep exploration of classism and white privilege and the ability to really protect yourself depending on your circumstances in life. And it was just overall this very depressing film, but one that I saw as extremely relevant and something that still should be talked about. The release from Indicator is incredible. They have an entire bonus film from the director. They've got lots of contextual extras from the time. They've got some interviews and stuff like that. I just absolutely love this film in that release. So the third one that I'm going to discuss is 1979's Time After Time. So this one, I don't know exactly how to explain this, but over time, since seeing it this year, I think I've kind of been more and more taken with it. It is this wonderful crime romance story that goes, of course, with a title like Time After Time, over throughout multiple decades, because there's time travel involved. The way that they portray this film is just super interesting, involving H.G. Wells, involving Jack the Ripper, and making Mary Steenburgen the subject of another time travel romance. I was just absolutely charmed by this film overall, and I think it's one of the better releases. That does have a glorious Blu-ray release from Warner Archive that looks great from a few years ago. I hope more people check that one out because it is superb. Next one. This is another one that got a release from one of these boutiques a few years ago, and that is 1981's The Killing of America. This got a release from Severin Films, and it is a documentary that is kind of tough to watch. It is very much focused on violence surrounding the time and the previous 15 years or so of when it was made. So it really has a strong leaning towards the JFK shooting. That's where they put a lot of their attention, how that affected America, how that played a part in the following decade and a half or so up until this documentary was made. And it was just a very interesting watch to see how, sadly, how little has changed in the last 40 years. And I almost feel like now that it's 40 years separated and we've had a lot of incredibly difficult things happen since then, I feel like they could frame another one of these surrounding something like 9/11. And I don't know that we necessarily need that, because we get really hammered with the violence, but it's something that I think is important and still deserves attention. Yeah, very strong release from Severin. I highly recommend that film. And speaking of that era of history, the next one that I saw for the first time was 1989's For All Mankind. Now, I don't know that I have never seen any of this before. I think I've seen some of this film before, but I watched this in full on 4K from Criterion this year for the very first time, and it was, I don't know. It is something that if you are not immediately swept up in the wonder of space and viewing the Earth from that window, it is just a ridiculous portrait of human accomplishment and wonder in a way that you can't comprehend until you've seen these images. And it's so wonderful to see this get reassessed in 2022 because of this glorious 4K release from Criterion. It seems to be an odd choice that they would make it 4K. However, I'm so grateful that they did. There are a few of these that they put out that were these catalog 4K releases from them, and a few of them stuck out as being a little bit odd, but it seems like those were the ones that were great from them this year. So I'm glad that they chose that one. Very happy with that film, very happy with that release. And the other big thing, I watched it with my kids, and they both just immediately fell in love. There's not a lot of these films that are made for adults and kids alike in something like For All Mankind that we can all enjoy together like this, that are from that age. A lot of the stuff nowadays feels a little more frenetic due to things like YouTube culture, as I contribute to that. But things like The Mitchells versus the Machines that came out in, I believe, 2021. Loved that movie. I thought it was amazing. But seeing this with my kids and watching them grab hold of it and feel that wonder coming out of them, it just made this release that much more special. Next one I want to discuss is the last one from the pre-2000s, and that is a release that we got this year from Saturn's Core Audio and Video, and that is 1994's No Resistance. Oh my gosh. So this is a shot on video film from the Houston area that is just ridiculously like charming in the way that it was made. Obviously, a lot of the technology is dated. It's super low budget, but there's something about it that just feels much more earnest than a lot of shot on video things. And it's successful in the fact that it feels genuinely almost timeless. Even though, you know, that, like I said, the technology looks dated, it does feel sort of post-apocalyptic, and some of the things that we would have to default back to might be these older layers of technology that rely less on things like the internet to survive. And it was fairly well acted. It had a decent story. It was fun to watch, super engaging. For a lot of people that are put off on shot on video things, I think this might be like a really great gateway film to start enjoying some shot on video things. It doesn't have a lot in common with like the sleazier we're gonna go home and practice gore effects and make a simple movie out of it. This is genuinely like a really fun and good movie, so I hope more people check it out. Saturn's Core absolutely killing it this year with shot on video stuff. I understand that a lot of those are not for everybody, but this one I think could be enjoyed by most people. For my post-2000s list, I had some glaring blank spots that I had not been able to see. I'm still, you know, very much going to be catching up on a lot of obvious things for years to come because I'm very, very behind no matter what. But some of these that I saw for the first time were just immediate winners for me, and these 6 in particular were some of my favorites from the year. Want to throw out Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder from 2003. I know that I'm late to the party, but my God, what a great movie. Absolutely beautifully scripted. The acting in this film is superb. I understand that there's complaints about the Criterion release about a color tint issue, which I don't love. I think that if directors are coming back and wanting to change their mind about the coloring, at least give everybody both versions so that they can watch the one that they've always known and the new colorized version, depending on your view of what you want for it. But because I didn't grow up with this movie, I wasn't really affected. I think it looked very good. I think it's something that it's quite obvious how that was a stepping stone to get us to Parasite, and to see what he's accomplished throughout the last 20 years or so is amazing. I adore Bong Joon-ho as a filmmaker, and the more that I see from Bong Joon-ho, I only have a couple left from him that I haven't seen at this point, the more that I'm just taken with him. And that also applies to this next filmmaker. That is Park Chan-wook's Thirst from 2009. I've been sorely missing out. I wanted to watch this one for a few years. I got the Kino Lorber release, and I really, really enjoyed watching this movie. I loved the religious aspect and how heavily they leaned into it and made it this vital aspect of the story. The sort of very unsexy sexual scenes in this movie were awkward and wild, and I loved everything about this one. Park Chan-wook is, again, just this amazing, thoughtful, really incredible filmmaker that I love. I still have not seen his film from 2022, Decision to Leave, and I can't wait to see it. I am dying to get my hands on the rest of his stuff and just dive in. I've loved basically everything I've seen from him. Only have a few left, and I think that Thirst was immediately one that I respected immensely. The next one, jumping ahead another handful of years, I watched 2014's Housebound. This is a comedy horror film from New Zealand, I believe, and just wow. I'm a big fan of like The People Under the Stairs from Craven, where they have people living in the walls. I don't know why. It's just a subgenre that I've made up in my head. Like I love doppelganger films and twin films for some reason, but this is one that, you know, you live your life in a house and you discover that you can't trust something in the house, but then the people around you, they have not seen evidence of it, so they think you're crazy. This movie was a blast. Really well acted, very like black humor. If you've seen a lot of New Zealand cinema, you completely understand it, I'm sure. There's a lot that goes into keeping the tone right on the comedy and the horror aspect of this movie, and I think it nailed both, which is really difficult to do, and it's just underseen. I don't understand how more people are not watching it. It is great. It absolutely should be talked about more as really great modern horror comedies. The next one, obviously, the filmmaker here is everywhere. He is on Netflix, he's on AMC, he's all over. Screenwriting, he's had some of the best films over the last 10 years, and somehow I've never been like, hell yeah, Taylor Sheridan. For some reason, I did not get to see 2017's Wind River until this year, and oh my god, hell yeah, Taylor Sheridan. This movie was incredible. Seeing Elizabeth Olsen and Jeremy Renner have this remarkable chemistry, and then seeing John Bernthal play this really interesting, deep character. I love when John Bernthal shows up in something like this. He did it as the same in Sicario, where he plays kind of a major part, but he's not in it all that much. But when he's on screen, he just commands your attention, and I adore him for that. This movie, incredible script, really well acted. I loved the background of this giant wintry hellscape, basically. And for a harrowing film like this, with certain things that are just awful going on, I am thrilled that they were able to accomplish what they did with this film. I love it. I know I'm late to the party. A lot of people have talked about this already, but Wind River is incredible. The next one is 2019's Last Black Man in San Francisco, and I watched the A24 4K release that they put out, and it, first of all, looks stunning. Incredible cinematography in this movie. The way that they embraced San Francisco from a lens that we don't get to see a lot, because obviously when you shoot San Francisco, you really highlight the famous architecture. You highlight a lot of the more affluent areas of San Francisco, and they did not shy away from this film to show you the real San Francisco. And I'm grateful that they were able to accomplish what they did in this film. The two individuals that are at the heart of the story have this remarkable like brotherhood chemistry that you don't always get when you're telling a story like this. But because they were able to pull it off, the whole thing felt so earnest and so just something important to the characters. And when you don't have that aspect telling a story like this, it all falls flat. But thankfully, this was fully successful the entire time. Loved everything that came out of this movie. While watching this, I discovered just how invested I was with the storyline, and it was nice to see the ending wasn't necessarily what I expected, but because of how invested I was, I wanted to be a part of it, and was just grateful for being able to witness what was happening. And my last one, this one is from 2021, and I definitely should have seen this last year. That is for the film Pig. Now, the main reason that I wanted to talk about this is because how remarkable the performance from Nicolas Cage was. I've loved Nicolas Cage for most of my life. The stuff that he's been in, all the way from Face Off and Gone in 60 Seconds to things like National Treasure, are incredible. This movie, though, shows a side of Cage that so rarely comes out that I can't wait for people to understand, like, he is one of the best performers of all time. He is absolutely incredible in Pig. He displays this vulnerability that he does not always get to display, and it was done so tenderly and in such a way that is devastating by the ending. I talked about being invested for Last Black Man in San Francisco. This is one where the ending was sort of a gut punch because of how invested I was. To see how immensely affected he was by having his life taken away from him at the beginning of the film, it was just a gut punch for me, and I'm grateful to have seen this. I really do wish I'd seen this in the theater. Unfortunately, I was not able to get to many films in the theater last year, but now's the time. Hoping for 2023, I'm able to up those numbers quite a bit. But that is my last discovery for the year that I wanted to bring up. A lot of these, obviously, bigger names, a lot of ones that people have been talking about because most of them have been in physical media releases over the last year or two. And in my opinion, I think that's a good thing. Accessibility to some of these great films is something that we desperately need. And film discovery is something that can happen in a myriad of ways. And finding something like a No Resistance from Saturn's Core or Thirst from Kino Lorber can go from seeing a film that you have heard of to seeing a film that you now adore as one of your favorite films. And it seems like every single year there's one or two that I watch and it just immediately captivates me in a way that I cannot let go of. So I'm grateful for film discoveries every single year, and I can't wait to see what I discover in 2023. As always, I want to say, if you like this, please give it a like and share around with some of your friends. What are some of your discoveries from this year? Things you loved, primarily things from before the year 2000. I know that there's a lot of stuff on my list from post 2000, but I'm really curious to see what people have fallen in love with from previous decades. That's always super interesting to me. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope that we can see you in the next one. From one collector to all of you, have a good night.